Welcome back to the tomb, everyone. This is the Pharaoh, aka Ali, and for today's episode, it's called Black Masculinity. And I have two very important guests with me today, and I'll have them go ahead and introduce themselves.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Baudelaire, host of the Soapbox podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts, author of My Journey Home, available everywhere you get books. And that's all I'm doing for now, but I got more coming.
I love it. Hello, world. My name is Shawn, content creator, host of My 2 Cents podcast coming soon. And I'm here to have a really good conversation.
Okay, let's get into it. So my first question is, what is the difference, if there is one, between masculinity and manhood?
I think manhood is bigger than masculinity. You know, manhood, and manhood takes so many different forms, you know what I mean? Because we're supposed to really gel or form into what is necessary for our people and, you know, our family, exactly what we need, you know what I mean? We don't need 100 dudes to be the same guy, right? So manhood takes a whole bunch of different forms. Masculinity, I guess, does as well, but masculinity, it changes more slowly, I'll say. You know, masculinity in 2021, masculinity in 1960, masculinity in 1860, completely different, especially among the different races. So yeah, Shawn, what you think? All right.
You know, it's funny. I was saying earlier that I try to keep it as one and the same in today's world because of how there's a rise in modern women, right? And so how we look at manhood versus masculinity, I try to keep it one and the same because really and truly masculinity, right, is the characteristics, is the trait, right? The traits of being manly, right? Whereas manhood could be looked upon as being a boy and then going and becoming a man, right? One plays into the other. So I try not to separate the two just because of how the world is now. And it's like kind of to your point, you know, 1860, 1960, 2021, right? There's a difference in definition of what masculinity and manhood is because the world is always ever changing, forever evolving, right? So what we consider masculine manhood now is totally different than what it could be considered back in the day. And so I try not to separate. I try to keep it one and the same. But I'm realizing, even as I'm saying this, they are different. You know, they are different.
Yeah.
But
yeah, go ahead. I see where you're coming from also. I think that the only reason why I separate them is that I believe that we all are a walking yin and yang of masculine and feminine. You know what I mean? Even amongst men, you know what I mean? And we know men who are less masculine than other men, right? But that doesn't make you, your manhood isn't in question, right? You're still a man, but you are less masculine than another man. And that we all don't need to be 100% masculine all the time. That's horrible. Nobody wants to do that, right? You really just look for someone that is the inverse. You know what I mean? 90% masculine, 10% feminine man is probably gonna look for a 90% feminine, 10% masculine woman.
Right.
So that is why I would separate them, because a woman is allowed to embody masculinity to some extent as well.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that because the kind of way that I look at it is like masculinity is something what someone has, but manhood is like who you are. It's like so I can have a certain level of masculinity, it's like, but being a man like kind of defines who you are. It's like with that wrapped up. So I understand how many times people try to make it synonymous, but going to what you said is that we both have masculine and feminine energy within us. It's like, Shawn, I think I said this to you just in previous conversations, is that it's like from the spirituality standpoint that I look at masculine and feminine energy, it's like your soul is made up of masculine and feminine energy. Now, your physical body is a manifestation of one of those energies, but you still have both of those in you. And for me, like being a man is it's controlling your masculine energy that's inherent to you, but then understanding your feminine energy within you.
Right. You know, I feel like, you know, in today's world though, when we look at it from like, we're still stigmatized to the old standards, right? And I hate to say stigmatized because rightfully so, it all depends on what kind of man you are. I do believe as men, we're supposed to provide. I do believe as men, we're supposed to lead. And there's a level of masculinity that plays into that, right? Those are the traits that make you become a man, so to speak. But, you know, like Debo, like not Debo, I'm sorry. But like you stated, like think about it. We have both energies in us, but as men, we're only supposed to be aware of the feminine energy in us. We're not supposed to act upon it, right? And you'll have other men that act upon it a little bit more. It's like feeding two wolves, right? Some men feed the feminine wolf more than they feed the masculine wolf. But does that mean that they're less of a man? Right? So it's really subjective to the individual and their own individual interpretation of it. But it's the definition is constantly changing. It's constantly and rapidly changing. And just with the rise in the empowerment of women, I mean, it's going to constantly be even more in question now than it was ever before, right? Because the balance of scale is different. So how we even identify masculinity and manhood is going to change. It's changing now.
Mm-hmm. I heard Nikki Giovanni one time. There's the conversation between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin that's on YouTube. It's like 2 hours of them talking. It's probably some of the greatest content, like in Black YouTube, right? And one of the things Nikki Giovanni was saying was that like if your manhood is built on my needing to walk 5 paces behind you, then it's never going to work. You know what I'm saying? So like you were saying, with the rise of the acknowledgement of the importance of womanhood, I think you aren't fully a man if you aren't comfortable allowing that space for a woman to take charge. You know what I mean? When it calls for that. You know what I'm saying? If your manhood is so fragile, you know, that it's like, oh no, this isn't a woman's place or whatever, and you're like marginalizing, especially if it's your better half, you know, that's when it's really crazy. But or like even your own mother, your sister, you know, if you don't respect womanhood, then your manhood is built on sand, really. You know, is that the phrase of like it's a house of cards, you know what I mean? It's only until it gets challenged by someone who's a real man. And that doesn't mean a physical altercation, nothing. Until it gets challenged, you know what I mean, you're gonna get broken down.
But do you think but here's my question to that, right? Do you think that it's obviously heavily correlated, manhood is obviously heavily correlated to being tough, right? Being this overly strong figure instead of actually having the traits and qualities of being able to just take care of and handle business, right? Because like today's world is when you hear about masculinity and manhood, it's like the rah tough dude, the dude that is more outspoken, the dude that stands supposedly 10 toes down and is just a little bit more assertive than other men. And it's like,
it's like making it a one-dimensional being.
Right. Yeah. It's like we're multifaceted. We're not just one thing. Right. And that's why I keep going back to the point of it's gonna forever change. The definition of it is gonna forever change, especially in today's world with women empowerment. It is what it is. But men have to figure it out. We don't have the luxury of complaining about it. Right. We gotta figure it out. And that just comes back to natural order of things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's constantly changing because we're trying to make a definition off of symptoms and not causes. It's like we don't want to get into the actual root. And it's like there are certain core principles that we can get to and be like, hey, like these are some core principles. And then out of that, there can be variations of it. But it's like I'll give an example. It's like with religion. It's like there are core principles within religion, but then that's when you have different sects and everything like that branch out to it, but there's a coreness to it. But I think that a lot of times is that because I think just historically is that men really we've had spaces to ourselves, but we haven't been given the tools to actually have these conversations to get down to the core of it, because for a long time it's that masculinity and manhood was just like, we'll have an argument for maybe about a minute and a half, and then after that someone's getting busted in the head. And that's the part of it that is the problem, is that we're not getting to the deep dialogue of it. And that's why where people looking at the symptoms of it, they'll be like, okay, well, we know it's not that, we know it's not that, we know it's not that. And it's like, I think it's a problem if you're trying to define something by what it's not than what it is.
Man, that was great.
Yeah, over the silence.
Yeah, man, I'm really absorbing that. Like, oh man, I think that when I feel that energy of another man, specifically another Black man, having a feeling like he has to assert himself, a lot of the times I kind of just see the pain in it. I'm like, damn, I get it. It's hard. Some days I want to get on the train and just flip out on the white dude. You know what I mean? As he bumped into me, but I'm yelling at him not for bumping into me. I'm yelling at him for 400 years. You know what I'm saying? And I feel it. And even sometimes, Black men, we take it out on everybody. We take it out on our own families. You know what I mean? We take it out on our kids and stuff. And we shouldn't do that. Obviously, we need to not do that. But we also need to like make space for patience. You know what I'm saying? We need to become in ourselves. So like I know we could talk all day about the Black dude that's doing wrong, but we need to ourselves decide, like, you know what, I'm gonna be patient with those brothers though, moving forward. Because if this construct I'm talking about is so powerful, then yeah, some brothers do, you know what I mean? They do make the mistake of falling for the trap, you know what I mean? And end up becoming these macho dudes that end up in the system. You know what I mean? It's like wokeness, right? You got people that are so woke that they'll see somebody like the most extreme example I can think of is like a Candace Owens, right? They're like, yo, Candace Owens is a coon, forget Candace Owens. Yes, but at the same time, if this thing that we call white supremacy is so powerful, then wouldn't it get someone like a Candace Owens? So shouldn't we, instead of like just throwing all the words that we could think of at her, shouldn't we be like, damn, sister, like, it's a shame. You really don't think we can do this ourselves. You really think that you drunk all the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not,
because you look the picture too.
it's you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and so that's the way I look at it. I don't look at it as I never look because it's like a Phoenix quote said one time, like she was like, I never beat Tupac because the world was gonna beat him enough. You know what I'm saying? Man, these people gonna say everything they want about Candace Owens. I don't need to throw it. You know what I mean? She gonna get called all the coons in the world. I don't need to say that to her. You know what I mean? And she's a Black woman at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's a dominant gene. She with a white man, but kid's gonna be Black anyway. You know what I'm saying? That kid's gonna hear it. Your mom's a coon. I don't need to throw that on her. I actually need to just be patient with her and be like, man, this knowledge is so powerful. What John Henry Clark said is so powerful. One day it's gonna get you.
Yeah.
One day.
I feel like that's attached to pain, right?
That's exactly what it's attached.
We're so easily attached to tragedy because that's what we were built upon, right? A lot of tragedy. We're so used to being an adverse people, or people that are able to overcome adversity, for lack of better words, right? So we're so attached to pain. That's why a lot of times you have the Candace Owens, those people that
Terry Cruzes.
The Terry Cruzes that
Terry Crews, another one. Yeah.
You know, we're seeing it from a place of pain, but we're also attacking them because we're also within a state of pain, right? Yeah. And we're unable to see it from your perspective, Baudelaire, where you're like, yo, why are we not feeling bad for the system? And be like, damn, actually, let's have a conversation and sit down. Like, why do you actually feel so strongly in these directions, right? Yeah. Why do you not only feel so strongly in those directions, but you're willing to spew that out into the masses, right? Yeah. Where it's not only going to impact yourself, your offspring, but the people that you actually represent at the end of the day, right? So you're coming with a talk. Like, now you got me thinking, because I was definitely one of those people calling her coons left and right, but not looking at the long-term effects. It's kind of like a lot of men struggle with the battle versus war concept, right? And I've been a manager for about 5 years. So being able to manage staff from, you know, groups of 4 to all the way up to 30 plus, right? Yeah. Especially Black men specifically, and how they take order and authority. Woo! And I've dealt with some that are receptive to it. And I've dealt with many more that are more willing to butt heads, be aggressive. And I have to come to a point of like, brother, I'm not going to fight you at work. Like, there's priorities here, right? Yeah. But at the same time, because I know who I am and the type of man that I am, and I observe energy and I observe when you're unbalanced, right? You haven't found that balance of feminine and masculine energy. You're not able to read the room properly. So therefore you're blocked to certain things. Like to your point, I gotta be patient with that individual. I have to, because even to the point of literally saying, you know, I'm not gonna fight you at work, right? You know, this check is a little bit more. I'm prioritizing this money more than I'm prioritizing me physically putting hands on you, right? What I'm trying to do is be constructive and let you know and teach you to be better.
And I think that's the part of that is that part of that is like the feminine energy in which they don't understand is that it's the emotion part of them that is they don't understand, they don't know how to process it or anything like that. So the only emotions that they have been conditioned to know how to express is anger and violence. So it's like, okay, if I can knock this dude out, that reaffirms to me and shows everyone else that I'm a man. Right. And the thing about the Candace Owens that made me think about is like, one, I wouldn't have sympathy for her, because for me, I think when you have sympathy for someone, how they are living their lives, it's like you kind of take pity on them. So you're looking kind of down on them. My thing is that I have unconditional love for all our people, but I'm not unconditionally in love with all our people. So I have love for you, but I'm not unconditionally in love with you.
Let me write that down.
Let me ask you this.
That's my new answer. That's my new answer to that question.
I pose this question though: is the rise of Candace Owens because of the lack of strong Black men, masculine men, the men that we're trying to define here? Is that the reason why we're more focused on somebody who's more assertive as a Black woman like Candace Owens? Because there's a lack of Black men that are doing the same thing, not to her point, but standing up and saying, you know what I'm saying? This is what I represent for my people. Because we have plenty of references, right, from the MLKs to Malcolm X, and a lot of times Marcus Garvey, but you hear the narrative from a lot of Black women
Patrice Lumumba,
you know, like, well, there's not enough Black men stepping up. Y'all don't fight and protect us anymore. And it's like, really? Because last I checked, all of us that did died.
But
then also there's the argument of like, well, if we don't, so the white dude gonna fight you? I don't think so.
Like me?
I actually don't think so. Even if he's with you, I don't think that's gonna happen. Like at the end of the day, the only person that fights, women fight for themselves. They are capable of doing that. But historically, I don't think you could give me any, not you particularly, anybody, give me an example of a race of men fighting for another race's women. That never happens. So, you know, like I hate even looking at it that way. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, that argument to me, I sympathize with the women that make that argument. You know what I mean? Because that comes from a series of disappointments by Black men they have come across. And I'm sorry for that.
For sure.
But at the same time, we can't spread the narrative. It's like the Black father narrative, right? It's like, okay, you know what I mean? That comes from a lot of prominent Black people saying, yo, my father wasn't there. But you look at the statistics of the masses of Black fathers. Black fatherhood actually isn't much in need of repair, as much as it's more of a class thing where lower income fathers, regardless of race, have a harder time staying home, because as a man, you're supposed to be the provider, and it's hard. You know what I mean? When there's no jobs where you're at. That's not specifically a Black thing, but for some reason, we bear the whole burden of that.
Well, it's just like the welfare things, that when you look at the actual numbers of it, numerically, there are more white people on welfare than Black people. But when I think was it Ronald Reagan that had that Black woman up there? It was like the welfare
queen. Yeah.
It's like yeah, it put that in people's minds. Like, now I will
say, good for
that,
her, by the way. I said, good for her. America owe us.
Yeah.
You know, I do not shame nobody for taking what they're owed.
So. Yeah. No, there's no shame in that. It's just I don't know, but I don't know if she knew the significance of what they were going to then try to portray her and everyone that looked like her was with her presence being there.
I listened to a podcast about her. No, she's a finesser. She was just a hustler.
Oh, she finessed it?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. That's that. Yo, like,
she went in there knowing I'm gonna have all these social security numbers. I'm gonna get welfare on all these names. She played the system. But you know what? White folks be playing their own system for years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You seen how much Jeff Bezos paying taxes? So was he a welfare queen? Because he still gets the government subsidy, right? So you know what I'm saying? So who really is the welfare? Like, you know, you could get into that. But something that I thought of was that actually in the book that before we started, I was telling you about, The Sword and the Shield, the revolutionary lives of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Cornelius Joseph was saying in an interview that while doing research for that book, what like astounded him was that talking to Malcolm's cousin, talking to Martin's assistant in Montgomery, never did he hear a story where they didn't accept the least of us, where either man, you know what I mean, in private was like, man, these niggas pissing me the fuck off. I can't stand these niggas. That never happened. You know what I mean? He did you're like, wait till you read the book. Like, he did the research. Right. And there was never a moment where they turned away. You know what I mean? Martin got stabbed in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? And turned around and went to Chicago. You know? How many brothers would have been like, you know what? I'm actually just going to keep my business in the South. I think I'm good on y'all Northern Negroes, actually. I think I was doing good down there. I'm gonna go back down there. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm
gonna let Malcolm take the North.
You know what I'm saying?
He knows how to talk to them.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it is Malcolm, the amount of hostility he had with the Nation of Islam, but at the same time was still accepting brothers who wanted to leave the nation and work with him. You know what I'm saying? Not realizing some of them worked for the CIA, some of them actually were still working for Elijah Muhammad undercover. Like, but those men had such a radical love, like Ashanti was saying, an unconditional love, that they was like, all right, whatever, like whatever comes.
Right. And I'm sure at times we made it hard to be in love with our people, but always had love for our people, because anybody listening to this podcast know that I'm very pro-Black, but I will not sit here and be like, there aren't sometimes it's like, I'll say it is hard to be in love with our people. Just sometimes looking around, it's just like, God damn, there's a lot of work to do. But I always have love for our people. So it's like, I'll be fed up sometimes, but you are not going to disrespect my brother or my sister. It's like any type of family. It's like, you can go back and forth with your siblings all day, and someone outside of the family could say the exact same thing that you said to one of your siblings, and it's on and popping. So it's just, I think we need to start, like, us as Black people, but definitely as Black men, just starting to understand it's like, we are a family. It's like, we are not going to agree on everything, but we will agree on that. I see you. That's why one of the things when I moved down south was just like, my professor, and this was a response that I never even thought about, is when you see people, it's like, oh, it's good to see you. He would respond, it's good to be seen. It's like, oh, it's like, normally I just say it's good to see you too, but it's like, good to be seen. It's like, that lets the other person know I acknowledge you, and I also acknowledge that you see me, because most of the times we are not seen.
But you know what? I think when it comes to manhood and masculinity, right, it's really important to know who you are as a man and what you represent, and be comfortable representing and knowing who you are. And there's a level of importance with that. And it's just like the power of words, right? What you say is extremely important. So to your point, for what you just said, that response, it has you questioning, like, oh, wait a minute, it is nice to be seen, right? And now you're looking at it from a different perspective. Baudelaire did it excellently earlier when he was making his point, right, with Candace Owens. It's having a different perspective. But as Black men, we have a responsibility to be able to teach that down and stand 10 toes down on that. And I think when you're really comfortable as a man, especially a Black man, and you're comfortable in who you are, you're able to have these conversations. And this is the best thing about today's world and being alive in 2021 versus, I guess, the 1960s or the 1860s, right? We actually have the chance and the opportunity and the luxury or the privilege of having a conversation of it like never before, right? So that's the reason why there's so many things in question of what masculinity is, what manhood is. For me, I just think when it comes to masculinity and manhood in general, if you want to figure that out as a man, you need to go talk to other men, other well-sounded, stable, especially emotionally stable men that have it together, that have been through the same things and understand your experience. It's like what we talked about earlier, Shanti, with do you think you should be able to cry as a man? Of course you should be able to cry. I just don't believe crying in front of a woman. That's just me, because she's not going to be able to understand that emotion. She's not going to be able to understand from a man's perspective. She'll be able to capture the emotion, but she won't be able to understand it from a man's perspective and be able to really understand, like, why do you as a man feel that way? And because you're supposed to be such a providing and dominant figure, she might not give you the best answer that you need. But then when you cry in front of your boys that actually care about you and love you, you get a totally different response, and it's actually just as welcoming as women, right? But it's coming from the perspective of men, where they can understand why you feel the way you feel, and they're going to give you a lot better advice. But I mean, if you admit that you cry nowadays, Lord have mercy, you are the most feminine man on the planet, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah, in the eyes of other people.
Right, in the eyes of the people, and that's a problem when we define masculine men, especially Black men specifically, because we've been so hardened to believe that when you're Black and you're a Black man, oh, it's automatic trouble, right? He has no conscience, he has no emotional awareness, and it's like, it's far from that. We actually receive that a lot earlier than most other people because we deal with a lot earlier on, right? So, I mean, yeah, I feel like it's going to be in question continuously for the next few years because the definitions of it are changing. And with the movement empowerment, back to my point, it's going to constantly be questioned, because with the rise of women, which is a beautiful thing. Shout out to all my sisters that are actually rising, especially if you're especially within a career, whether you're a CMO now, CFO, CEO. I love it. I love to see it, right? But also understand that it comes with a level of responsibility that men innately know, right? Yeah. And we figure it out.
And I agree with you to an extent. So I think that, yes, what you said is that like, as a man crying in front of a woman, it's like, she can have sympathy for you, but not empathy, because you're coming from a different perspective per se. It's like if you're a man and you have a wife, kids, you just lost your house and you're crying. It's like, you and your wife could both be crying, but you're crying from a standpoint of, I'm a failure to my wife and my kids. It's like, they're going to look differently at me, like, because of I wasn't able to do what they expected me to do.
Right.
A wife might be crying from a different perspective. I'm not a woman, so I can't tell that perspective. But it's like, as a man, like, because he was the provider in that family, that's going to hit a different way. Like, it might be the same outcome, it might be the same action, but a different causes coming from it. So talking to another man and saying, I was like, yo, like, I lost this and that, like, another man will be able to empathize with you. It's like, damn, I would have cried in that situation too. Right. Now, the part where I disagree with you on is that not crying in front of women. I think that
don't do it.
I think that you should, if you have a significant other, you should be able to cry in front of them, but that also comes with understanding your own feelings, because there are, I've talked to some women, there are times when they like ask their man to be more vulnerable, and the second he is, it's a floodgate, and they get overwhelmed and they're like, whoa, hold on. It's like, what the, like, you can scare someone with how emotional you are, but that's also because of the fact that you haven't taken the time to put a reins and handle your own emotions so that you can share it with other people.
You share that type of emotion with any woman. Give it some time. Keep doing it continuously, and she's gonna question why you were there. It's just
I think I see what Shawn's saying to a point. I think though that the reason why,
before you make that point though, hold on. Before you make that point, let me give you some context of why I think that is the way it is. Yeah. Right? It's because of how they've been taught. Right? We're taught as men not to cry openly, and women are taught to not see men cry. Right? Yeah. That's the perspective that I'm coming with the whole fact of like, just don't do it, because even though we're conditioned to adapt to the changes of women rising, which is a beautiful thing, they're not in the mindset, in the space of adapting to men changing in that space at all.
But to that I'll say, that's if you're not dealing with a woman on your level though, because I think the hardest part of life to me is unlearning. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was so much like bullshit that I learned as a man about how to treat women.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many things. Like, I remember one time, like early on in me and my girlfriend's relationship, right? I asked her, because I really love hip hop. Like, I live hip hop. And I asked her one time, like, yo, you really love hip hop like I do? And she said something, I can't remember exactly how she worded it, but she said something like, yeah, hip hop's kind of disrespectful to me. You know, and I'm like, yeah, some of that music was kind of disrespectful to you. But I never looked at it. I never heard it from your lens. I only heard it like, you know what I'm saying? And some of it, you know, she could still hear like, move, bitch, get out the way. That's such an anthem, right? They're saying it. But sometimes you hear like a rapper's album cuts and he talk about this relationship. The way he talking about a woman, you're like, man, if I was just with one of my friends and he was telling me a story and he was just talking about a woman that way, today I'd be like, hey, yo, man, you really need to check yourself the way you know what I'm saying? The way you really kind of treat me like an animal, not a human being. You know, I heard Charlemagne one time say, you love pussy but hate women. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes like the way we're taught to treat women kind of perpetuates that kind of thinking. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say that the man who's willing to cry in front of a woman needs to be with the woman who's willing to feel a man crying in front of her. Because if those two things don't match, then you end up with the problem that you're saying. Also, and I'm just speaking for myself, if I do cry in front of my woman, I'm not going, and I cry the second day, and I cry the third day. That fourth day, I'm someone I really figured stuff out. I would have figured it out. I'm just very solution oriented. You know what I mean? So I don't cry for that long. You know. So I think I think that kind of lends to your point, though, is that definitely don't do it to cry, period, that many days in a row, because eventually, life is hard. You really got to buckle down and figure out how to stop crying.
100%.
You know, so I don't know. I feel both of you in that. You know what I mean? But
always gonna look at you as a providing, as a structure, as a person to be the protector, and always gonna be looking at you from a lens of survival. That is always automatically a woman's lens. That's why when you talk about women that want certain men, certain caliber of men, well, they range a certain financial range, right? One that usually they typically don't fall within, right? But that's the beauty of hypergamy, and that's why that word even exists. When women date and marry up, barely the same, and men automatically typically marry down, right? But this is the world we live in, and because they look at us in such a strong role, being a man comes with a lot of responsibility. Providing is a lot. You know what I mean? It's one thing to provide for ourselves individually, but when you're like, damn, I'm expensive. And then now you're talking about now you're thinking on the scope of a family, providing for your wife or your significant other. Now you're providing for children. That is a lot to bear, right? But it's a responsibility that's automatically given to us. And so when you are seen in such a higher role, in such a powerful role, you don't have the luxury of just being able to be emotional to your significant other, unfortunately. And I truly believe that. Now, I do agree to your point of if you two are not in sync with that feeling, then you guys shouldn't be together in the first place. I 100% agree to that. In situations like that, I'm pretty sure a man's not going to be crying more than a few days, because he's going to be able to have a woman that's there, that's strong enough to be able to, like, yo, this man feels this way because of X, Y, Z. I understand it. I'm going to give this man his space, his time. He will figure this shit out. He'll come back to the table because I know this man for who he is. I respect this man. I love this man. This man is going to come forth. What doesn't matter what we're going through, right? Mm-hmm. That's a certain level of reverence and respect, and that doesn't come as often nowadays than it did before. And so that's why our masculinity and manhood is constantly being in question, right? Constantly at all angles, financially, who we are emotionally, and it's opening a can of worms. And you are seeing a lot of men that are not emotionally there or financially there, that are making wild and reckless decisions. But I always like to say that equal opportunity does not equate to equal outcomes, right? Just because we all have to say we're on the same playing field now, doesn't mean that we're all going to get it the same, right? But as men, we got to figure it out. And when it comes down to that bottom line, I just don't feel like you can just openly be so emotional in front of your lady. But when you have your group of boys, your group of men that you can talk to about certain situations, that you can express yourself to, and they're confident, and these are confident men. Let me just say this right now. These are very confident men we're talking about. These are men that know themselves. These are men that love themselves for who they are, and they respect you for who you are, and they just love you just for being another Black man that's surviving, right, in this world. Those are the type of men that you'll be more likely to lean on than a female. I would like to say female counterpart, but then a lady, right? But a lot of that also comes through experience, right? So I have to be conscious of what I'm saying. I have to be very aware of what I'm saying, because it's somewhat opinionated to my experiences, right? And that's just, it is what it is. But there's nothing wrong with crying. I feel like, and I say this openly, there's nothing wrong with crying as a man. There's nothing wrong with feeling your emotions. A lot of times you have to feel it through and really figure those things out before you can figure out any of your issues out that you're really dealing with. Whatever made you get to that point, you actually need to actually go through it. And it's best, I feel like, for men to be able to not only lean on other men for that comfort, but to be able to allow us to regain that confidence and stay and remain in confidence, even though we're going through a low point.
And I think you got to go through it to get through it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that the thing is when people propose the question, well, when men propose the question to other men about crying, is that because of the type of society we live in a society of extremes. So they go to straight like, oh, a man that cries all the time, like you're in the middle of a grocery store and you're crying because they ran out of milk. It's like, yeah, anybody would look at that and be like, that's wild. But I think in terms of being a man and understanding that feminine energy is that being a man is like holding on to that and knowing when, where, who, and how to express that to people. It's like, and to a certain person. And it's like we were talking about earlier, Shawn, is before this, it's like having the right person that can actually handle like what you want to express.
Right.
So I think I think that's part of the becoming a whole person. It's like understanding both of them and knowing like, okay, as a male, this masculine part is a part that's kind of inherent in me to varying degrees for different males, but it's inherent. It's like both of them are inherent, but one manifests more than the other. It's like, so I need to understand this part of me and then also understand who I can show this part to, because not everyone deserves to see that part of me.
No, yeah. One of the things that keeps me grounded, honestly, and I know we're not gonna get into womanhood. We don't got time to get in that today, but like from just the women that I've had conversations with, like women are going through it too.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? And like, what does womanhood really mean? You know what I mean? Does womanhood mean the ability to bear children? You know, does womanhood mean living up to beauty standards? So sometimes I don't put too much pressure on myself as a man, because it's like, man, we all just human beings trying to figure this life thing out. You know what I mean? And as long as we stay grounded in, you know, with integrity and like core values, I honestly feel like the rest of it is going to figure itself out.
Yeah. And like you said, women are figuring out womanhood as well for themselves. And the way that I've looked at it for myself is that about 85% of what it means to be a man to me has nothing to do with a woman. Because a lot of times it's like when we talk about what manhood is and everything like that, and it's like, even within this conversation, it's like we've brought up women a lot of times about talking about masculinity and manhood, as like my manhood is based off of what a woman views and thinks of it. And it's just like, nah, like I think that it's 85% of it is what is inside of me, what I'm thinking, and how I interact with the rest of the world. Now, the other 15% of that is like, yes, women will say that this is the type of man that I want, but I have to be secure enough within myself to just be like, okay, that's what you want. This is who I am. It's like, and you're not going to shake that. It's like, unless, honestly, like, but that's where the introspective comes in. It's like, unless you have some really toxic traits, it's like, go ahead and like handle that. But that's where I think that other men have a responsibility to check other men, because Absolutely. We know, like, before a woman ever interacts with a man, his boys know what type of man he is. So we have an obligation to be like, nigga, you need to change yourself before you go out here in this world, because you're giving the rest of us a bad name, and people tend to remember their bad interactions a lot more than the good ones, because those are the negative emotions. So it's burned into your brain. It's like, okay, this did not make me feel good. Let me remember this so I can try to stay away from something like that the next time so I don't feel it. It's like the only time when the positive emotions start taking over is that when it's on a continuous type of thing and you get hooked to it. And it's like, now I need it. But that one negative experience, that can stick with you for years. It could, for some people, it sticks with them for the rest of their life. And it's like that, essentially that is trauma. And it's like, so us as Black men, we need to have more comfortability and authority to check other Black men and be like, listen, you're not going to be out here traumatizing people. It's like, you need to figure out what you're doing, but don't be out there in the streets just like trying to find yourself through traumatizing other people.
100%, 100%. I agree to that. We need to hold each other accountable on all standards, and we need to be able to lead one another in the right direction. And that, I find myself through my experiences, when I do deal with certain women and, have men that come up to me and talk to me like, yo, how'd you get that? How did you, we all have different skills, right? And you got to know exactly what you're good at. And men, you'll figure that out, right? And for me, I usually have the gift of gab. I'm usually a really good time. I'm a good vibe. I understand body language very well. So I read that more than I speak. And that has allowed me to be extremely successful in that area of life, right? But when it comes to other men asking me how I do it, and if they honestly ask, I'll give them the answers. You know what I mean? I'm not selfish in it. I think it just comes to a lack of experience and a lack of passing down proper knowledge to other men. And like to your point, Ashanti, holding men accountable, right? Like checking that shit, like, yo, chill the fuck out. There's times where I've had to, check my own friends that are no longer my friends for obvious reasons, right? Because you're not on a higher level of thinking. But there are a lot of people I've had to check a lot of men in this world. I'm like, yo, you gotta fucking relax, like seriously. And it's like, yo, what's your problem? No, I'm not fighting you. I'm telling you, like, I mean, unless we want to take it there, then we have a problem. But now I'm trying to check you on a man level because you're doing too much. Like, she's terrified.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think you notice, like, her body language is like, yo, I don't know what to do in this situation, because you are far more aggressive and far more assertive than she is, and she's already looking terrified, and you're not even noticing that. And like, there's been situations where I've had to check other males, even especially if I know you, I'll definitely pull you to the side, like, yo, chill out, and I'll explain to you what you're doing, right? But it becomes tough because a lot of Black men have a lot of ego. It's constant competition, right? And it's not to their detriment. It's to your point earlier, Baudelaire, to your point, you got to be patient.
Yeah, no, it's tough. But also too, I think I think a lot about what Elijah Muhammad said to Malcolm X about, you know, the way to show somebody they're drinking out of a dirty glass, put a clean glass next to it. And like sometimes I go into modes. I feel like my whole life, like every like 3 months, I'm just like living by a whole different, you know, I like my core values and principles are obviously the same, but sometimes I'd be on a whole different type of time. Like sometimes I go a while where I'm like preaching to every brother I see, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yo, come on, man. But then sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna live by example. You know what I mean? Now I find that when I'm living by example, more like you said, more brothers come up to me and be like, yo, how did you know what I mean? Like so especially early on in my relationship, right? I say the first like 2 years. I've been with my girl now 4 years. In the first 2 years, dudes would be like, yo, man, your relationship is beautiful, bro. Like, yo, what the hell, like, like, what are you doing? Like, and I'm like, yo, honestly, bro, like, I appreciate her every day. You know, like, you know that feeling of like, you know, when you talking to a girl and you just got her number and she's everything to you. You're like, yo, I can't wait to like go to X, Y, and Z. Think about that. Think of that. Capture it. And a year into y'all relationship, she's at work. Think to yourself, yo, that girl that you was like sweating, yo, she's coming home to you.
Right.
Ain't that crazy? Like, you know what I mean? And kind of get back into that, right? And show her that you feel that way. And I say all that to say that, like, you know, I had friends that weren't treating that girl the best, right? And I was like, you know, a part of me is like, yo, who am I? I don't know your relationship to say X, Y, and Z. I don't know. You know, I mean, I don't know how she talks to you when I'm not around. So who am I to say, you know, as long as it doesn't get inappropriate, you know, but yo, y'all relationship isn't as healthy. But what will happen is when he's like, yo, man, Renee is like, man, y'all really happy. Like, what's going on? Boom. Now I have an opening, right? He dropped his ego. Now I can, you know what I'm saying? And it's not just in, like Ashanti said, it's not just in relation to women. Her brother actually is in like really good shape, right? My brother like really works out a lot. I try to work out a lot. And I tell him, I'm like, hey, yo, man, I'm trying to get like you. Like, what the hell did you do? You know, that's my man. Like, I don't have to be stronger, faster than him. I don't have to do, but I could actually tell him, like, all right, bro, me and you go to the gym just the same amount, 4 or 5 days a week. Your 4 days is getting more than my 5. What's going on here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, right? Like in that situation, I was the dirty glass. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's just about just recognizing that. And when you're the clean glass, just living in it. Like, yeah, you have to, like, clearly brothers see you and be like, yo, well, Shawn got it. I gotta holler at Shawn about this, you know? But then there's some things that a weakness of yours that you're like, you know what? I have to I don't know, the best way I can think of the word is like humble myself and be like, yo, I'm a master at this and I am a novice at this. You know what I mean? And I need to approach a brother who's a master. You know what I mean? And figure out how he got there. I'll never be a master, but maybe. But I can at least get half.
Yeah, it's like you're not gonna be a black belt, but you can at least get a couple stripes.
You know what I'm saying? And if I have a couple stripes in a bunch of different things, oh, I'm good. You know what I mean? Because I'm a master of something. Everyone's a master of something. So I could spread my knowledge on the thing I'm a master at, and everything else, I just gain knowledge. Like Ashanti, and this is something about Ashanti I've always appreciated. Ashanti he was woke before woke, right? And Ashanti is always my man. Like at UMass Amherst, Ashanti never. At UMass Amherst, that era of my life, I was the Walking Dead. I was going against some of the principles I have today. Yeah, I'll say that. You know what I mean? The way I was moving, a lot of things I had to unlearn. We'll say, right? And Ashanti could have many times been like, "Hey, yo, Baudelaire." You know what I mean? I know this. I could, you know what I mean? But rather than do that, even way back since high school, you've known things that Ashanti that I had no idea about. You know what I mean? But if Ashanti said, "Hey, Baudelaire, X, Y, and Z," I'd be like, "Man, get the fuck out." Right. I don't want to hear that right now. You know what I mean? But I ain't trying to hear that right now. Ashanti, I'm in this frat party right now. And you know what I mean? They just pull out the ice luge, Ashanti. Leave me alone. You know what I'm saying?
Where the white woman at? Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Ashanti could have really judged me in that moment, and he would have been right. you know, or he was right. But I just really appreciate brothers that like just pick their spots, because now that I gained the information, Ashanti came to Brooklyn, like we were saying when you came on my former podcast, and that trip, Ashanti coming to Brooklyn, it was when I realized how much I appreciated him. You know what I mean? Because that weekend, I'm like, yo, Ashanti's my fucking man. Yeah. You know, this dude has known all this shit. Like, you know what I mean? He comes from consciousness in a way that I had to learn, because my parents are Haitian immigrants. They didn't, you know, they don't understand the context of, you know, the Black plight in America so much. You know what I mean? They understand the Haitian context, and yeah, I honestly, I don't even know how I ended up here. I'm sorry, y'all, but
no, but thank you for that, brother. Like,
that makes sense. It's really just going back to the point of passing down knowledge and again, holding
yes,
each other accountable. You know what I mean? No, you spoke very eloquently. It really comes down to that. Passing on the knowledge and having the people that are there, that are in your life, that you can like actually show appreciation to and say, dude, I appreciate you for holding it down. Like I got a few boys, like one of my business partners who's also a host of my podcast coming up. He that's one of the dudes I would consider mentor me in other light, you know, in another light. Has given me a lot of information, especially for things that I've done wrong. You know what I mean? Things that I could have done better. And it's like what you're, to your point earlier, unlearning, continuously unlearning, which is a lot harder than it is, because you have a lot of those core habits, especially if you're only 25. Oh yeah, you know, you have a lot of those core habits in you. And so to be able to unlearn those things and to become anew, right? And to become more brand spanking new, because you have other brothers that are able to give you information. I think that's the most beautiful thing on the planet. It's like when people ask me, like, what do you do to work out? Like, what do you eat? I'm like, all right, cool. I'll tell you everything. And then like, what I've also learned too is, again, to your point of being an example, I realize that a lot of other brothers don't have a certain level of experiences, right? And you start to see a lot of women, you know, claim these experiences. And I'm not going to tie this to women at all, but I'm just saying, when they have the girl trips, they're going for really and truly experiences, right? And a lot of brothers don't have the same level of experiences. And so when I know that I can provide an experience, I'm like, all right, come out with me. You want to go out? Let's do this. You want to go to the gym? You want to get fit? Let me show you exactly what I do in the gym, right? And then when they're in the gym with me, whether it's 45 minutes or an hour, they're like, damn, this brother is really working out. Like, we might have had a really good conversation, but I'm pretty sure I just did 35 sets of X, Y, and Z. Like, wait a minute, we're already 3 quarters through like, I'm drained, but I can't believe I got this one. But it's, again, I'm providing you with the experience because I know you didn't have it. So now that you can see it yourself, again, to your point of the dirty glass and the clean glass, right? You were the dirty glass before, I showed you a clean glass, and now you're gonna take it. It's like learning something new for the first time, and you give that person that experience and they love it. And they'll never forget you for the experience. You know, that's the reason why I have a lot of brothers that come up to me that appreciate me today, that I hope genuinely appreciate me, but I always use my words wisely. And when people, you know, reach out to me, I always tell them I appreciate them. And then just using the word king and just, you know, obviously brother, king. Well, I'm specifically like the bro here and there, yeah, but brother is just, it's more powerful for me to say. You know what I mean?
Because there's more love with brother.
It's more love, exactly. You know,
more love with brother.
Like, I think that we start using those types of words, because when you really think about it, it's like you call someone brother or sister. It's like we all have like, we all have siblings here. It's like, so that type of love and protection you put on your siblings, it's like when you call someone else brother, it's like that's saying I got you. It's like I love you, I protect you. It's like we're here, we're in this together. So definitely, like, using those words is like that lets people know it's just like, all right, I'm amongst family now.
Like, your kids are my nephews and nieces.
Correct.
Oh no, I'm saying, like, that's also the power of brother. Like, no, your kids are my nephews and nieces.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We are a village here now. Like, I bought my best friend a birthday gift yesterday, and I went to the store to get a card to go to gift. Me and my girl, we start at all the way on the left, and it's like cards for friends. And I'm looking at these cards. I'm like, these shit is corny. I'm looking at them. Then we go all the way to a couple more aisles over. I'm like, I'm gonna get him one of the cards for brother. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the love I got for that dude. You know what I mean? Like, his impact on my life. These friend cards don't do it.
Right.
And
yes.
These friend cards are kind of goofy. The brother cards are like, yo, bro, you are a cornerstone in my life. You know what I mean? You're like, God forbid anything happened to you. Yeah, my attachment to you is so powerful that my attachment to these kids is for the rest of my life now. You know what I mean? Like that kind of power. And we also, like, you don't have that attachment with your friend. You just don't. You know what I mean? Like, your friend is your friend while they're, you know, like, oh yeah, we friends, yeah, whatever. Like, nah, that's my brother, man.
Like, I can say that, like you said, is that I was in the fraternity at UMass Amherst, and I can say that I had a lot of friends there, a lot of good friends, but there are very few brothers. Yeah, I mean that in the Black colloquial sense, brothers there. And it's like, even with and the thing is that like, us as African people, we've understood that, like, your extended family is just as important as your like your blood family. Because the thing is that Shawn, he's my cousin. It's not blood cousins, but if he called me up and was like, hey, something's going on, I'd be driving 16 hours to Boston. Yeah. Like, I'll be there in 16 hours. But that's the type of thing, because people always try to say, like, blood is thicker than water. And it's just like, but like, sometimes that water becomes so thick that it's thicker than blood.
Right. Yeah. And also, you have connections with people, mental, and especially as Black men, we see it in each other. Where, for example, right, you go back high school, I'm a grade above Shanti Ali. You know what I mean? But from you go back to 2010, me and Evandro, my best friend, we see Ashanti Ali in the hallway. We like, yo, you know what I mean? And it's like, to like to a group of white dudes that are watching, they don't even understand, because they like, yo, how y'all that cool? But like, well, I don't see you with Ashanti Ali. And I'm like, no, but it's love. I love him, right? Just off, when I see him, I'm so happy to see him.
Right.
That for you to feel that kind of love, yeah, me and you gotta, you know what I mean? We gotta have all these experiences in the world, but Ashanti Ali, I know already.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Met Ashanti Ali probably like 06 or something. I don't know, whenever. You know what I mean? Like, middle school, high school days, right?
Yeah.
And look at us damn near 20 years later. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's really crazy, the connections that you make, and we need to really start we need to lean into those connections as Black men. You know what I mean? My friends know I be calling them. I'll call a specific friend for the thing that I need. One of my friends is financially fucking genius. When my money bad, I call him, not for money. I call him because I'm like, I need that energy that you have, that you're really good with money. I just need to talk to you for a couple hours.
Right.
At the end of this call, I'm gonna be more, like, better with my money. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with working out. Like, you saying, at any aspect of my life, my relationship. I'm gonna call my brother who's there. You know what I mean? He married. Right. I call him like, yo, man, like, and he's like, yeah, I get it. And then when we talk, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's really that community, like Ashanti was saying. It's and we make that community so easy that people that don't come from, non-African people don't really understand it.
Yeah. So I feel like it's on a spiritual level at times, a lot of times, really and truly. It's just that automatic connection.
They're constantly at war with each other. But that's a whole
And like, that's the thing, is that goes back to what we were saying. It's like, I see you. It's like, it's like, you're my brother, you're my sister, because I see you. And we might not have had the same exact experiences, but we understand what it is to be here.
Exactly.
And it's like, and we're in this together. And
Stoughton High, we was there together. Amherst, we was there like, oh no, I know what you've been dealing with here. I know, you know what I'm dealing with.
That was definitely an experience. But touching upon a couple of things that you guys said, is like, it's something like, it's hard to unlearn something. And something my dad would always tell me is that as soon as someone rents space in your head, it's hard to make them leave. And the lessons that we learned was taught to us by someone, and that person is renting space in our head. So every single day you have to have an eviction. You need to kick these people out. 100%. Because they, like, as soon as they're in, they try their hardest not to leave. But the other thing that I wanted to say is like Baudelaire, what you were saying is that like there are definitely like things that I look to you and Shawn for, because you and Evandro were starting podcasts before podcast became the wave.
Yo, man, if we kept hold on, like,
you guys were on it beforehand. I was just like, yo, like I remember being back in Brockton, like my intermediate years between school, and just listening to you guys' podcast. It's like this is good. Like this is getting me through the day.
Yep.
And I really appreciate you guys for that. And Shawn, is like with you, it's that seeing another uncompromising Black man just living his truth, no matter like what people might be like, oh, well, I don't agree with that. That's not PC, whatever. You know, it's like, well, that's your feelings. And to your point about dropping your ego is that, Shawn, I told you this earlier today when we were talking, we started posting about you, like you back at the gym getting into it. I'm looking at it's like, this motherfucker trying to be healthy and shit. Like, you look like I can't go out with this nigga anymore. I become a non-factor.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that's why you need your brother to challenge you, to be like, yo, I'm not challenging you, but I am challenging you.
Yeah, my presence
be around me
is enough.
Let me tell you this, and the beauty of me being who I am is the fact that like a lot of my close friends, especially male Black friends, they don't have the same body type as me. I have other male Black friends that are more D's than me, of course, for sure. But I tend to keep myself with a lot of diverse Black men, as I like to say, in terms of body type. And the reason why I have the ability to do that is because those Black men have confidence, right? They're so confident within themselves. Like I got one friend that's like, he's heftier. You know what I mean? Got a little bit of a belly, got the bald head with the beard. That's Ross right there. You know what I mean? He's not as big as Ross. He's more appealing than Ross. I mean, if we're comparing to or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? He is himself. The man is so confident in himself, he can bag anybody, right? That's just because he knows who he is. And then I also got another friend that's, again, different body type, but it's the confidence. And if they ever wanted to get into the gym or they work out, and the funny thing now is we all do work out together now. But beforehand, somebody just has to sometimes be that spark. And for them, I was that spark in terms of the workout realm. Like, oh, he's back on it. I know he's serious about this life. He embodies this, right? And I'm pretty sure your two's relationship is really based off of core values and principles of who you are, right? You're like, I love this dude because I know what this man represents.
Right? Yeah.
I know what he represents, not just to me, but I know if I see this dude out, oh shit, it's
man. The thing with Ashanti Ali is that like when me and Evandro, he was my old co-host, were making our show, we was like, yo, if we could make a show that niggas like Ashanti Ali are impressed by, like, you know what I mean? Like that was and even now my show now, right? Like I make my show now for like, because sometimes you when you make content and as content creators, I think we have to be conscious of this. Sometimes you make content for the lowest common denominator. You know what I mean? On the Soapbox, I have an episode about Malcolm X, right? I wasn't going to start the episode with Malcolm Little was born, and no, because I'm not starting all the way down there. I'm sorry to my people that don't know, but if you don't know that much, you have to go somewhere else and then come back to me.
By
you know
the way,
what I mean?
I love that episode.
Thank you. And the thing is, so the Malcolm episode though, and the Martin episode, those episodes I'm making for Ashanti Ali to hear.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Ashanti Ali give the thumbs up because I know Ashanti Ali get the thumbs up. Now I know it's solid. So now that it's solid, I know that the people that don't know, because I know he knows what I'm saying, but I want to like, yo, you like how I put that together? Okay, cool. Because if you like how I put that together, that means that's really going to teach a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because Ashanti could call me and be like, yo, all right, in the Malcolm episode, at one point you said X, Y, and Z. I think it actually went ZYX. So I'm like, oh damn, okay. You know what I mean? And I respect Ashanti's mind enough where I'll go in and change it. I'll take it down from iTunes, change it, put it back up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Where I think we have to know who has that license, right? Because in the same way of like clean glass, dirty glass, we also need to always keep in mind on who your glass is cleaner than, and if they can actually test you in this thing, right? Because Shawn, for example, you in the gym, right? Some dude walk in the gym, first day he been in the gym in 15 years. You doing a pull-up. He goes, hey, yo, Shawn, your form on that pull-up is off. You'd be like, yo, you can't talk to me about my pull-up, bro. You can't, you know what I mean? You're not qualified. No disrespect. There's something you can teach me about. But on this, like, you know what I mean? And that's part of the confidence thing. You know what you are mastering. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, brother, I think I got this. You know what I mean? We can have a debate on pull-up form. So I can show you. But, and that's the thing. And so I say that to say is that Ashanti is someone, when it comes to the knowledge, that I know, like, man, you's way ahead of me. You know what I mean? And I'm reading autobiography of Malcolm X in 4 days. I'm like, I gotta catch up to this niggas like Ashanti Ali. These dudes, he do so much from so young. And I just started gaining consciousness at 23.
Yeah.
You know? And I just started working out at 22, 23. You know what I'm saying? These things, there are people that are ahead of me. But then also, now that I'm 28, there's some people that I'm ahead of.
Right.
You know? So, no disrespect to someone I'm ahead of, but like, we just need to.
But you know what the thing about it too?
So can I give you one little fun fact? And I know people are gonna rip me apart for this one. I've never actually read the autobiography of Malcolm X.
All right, y'all, that's the end of my time here on
listen,
on Zoom Talks.
Let me tell you talks.
Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why.
4 times.
I'll tell you why. The reason why I haven't read it is because through other readings is that people have very heavily critiqued the autobiography because of the fact that the editor, Alex Healy, because he was the editor, was very liberal with his edits to it. So I'm pretty sure all of us here have watched the Spike Lee Malcolm X movie. That part where he puts his head in the toilet and everything like that, contemporaries to Malcolm's friends was like, that never happened. So it's like, and even also with his contemporaries, it's like, from what they've read from the original manuscript to what was actually published, there's so many things that were left out and then put in to sell a better book. And like, that's why I never read it, because so the thing is that it's like, I know a lot of the basic facts that you get from an autobiography. But then like I've listened to and read a lot of his speeches, almost all of his speeches. So the thing is that I understand the man.
Right.
It's okay. So
I'll stay on the show.
I know, because I know people probably listening right now are just like, this motherfucker rides from Malcolm X and he didn't read his autobiography. It's like, but this is if you really ride and you ain't reading.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna flip it on y'all. The real people didn't read the autobiography.
You weren't ready for that, Juno.
Yeah. Wow. That was a man. I ain't even woke. I need to start over. I need to man.
Yeah, you're about to be like, I rescind everything I positively just said about him.
I gotta go reevaluate and research some more.
This motherfucker's approved because he hasn't read it. I'll talk to you guys later.
One thing I want to say before we wrap up is I just need to make sure I say this. When Ashanti told me the topic of the episode is that I actually just I just finished my thesis about 4 days ago to get my master's.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
No.
And my thesis is actually on Black Boy by Richard Wright. I don't know if y'all read that book.
I've heard of it.
And it's about how that book changed my life 3 times. Read it at 16, read it at 22, read it last summer. And each time I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe. So Black Boy is pretty much the story of Richard Wright from Mississippi in 1920 all the way to the book ends towards the end of the Great Depression. Excuse me. And it's like his formative years. And that book, like if anyone who's not read that book, like to me, that book is more important to me than the autobiography of Malcolm. It literally shaped my consciousness. It was the first reading it in English class was like, oh, there's Black men that think like me. You know, there's a Black dude, and he lived in the 20s. And Richard Wright ended up moving to Paris and dying in Paris, but he also died of Pan-African, and he become a Marxist in his life. And when I first read the book, I was like, Marxist? What are you talking about? Communism? Oh my God, what is wrong? Then I read it last year, and I'm like, oh yeah, I feel you. I see it. Yeah. Africa for the Africans, home and abroad. Yeah. No, this capitalism thing is pretty wicked. But at the time, I wasn't in the workforce. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I mean. Like, it changed my life multiple times. Each time I got a different part of his life where I was like, oh, I feel you. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I know when I read it in 5 years, I'm gonna get something else. But yeah, my whole point in saying that is Black Boy by Richard Wright, to me, I wrote my thesis on it. It's literally, to me, the most is groundbreaking, that book.
And that's Wright with a W, correct?
Wright. Yeah. Richard Wright was actually James Baldwin's mentor for a little bit. And Native Son is probably his most popular book. Also, it's considered his best book. That, like, Native Son is his cult classic, but Black Boy is like that. So, Black Boy is his Illmatic in my opinion.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm adding that to my list. But there's one thing that I kind of need to.
After you're done reading it, call me. I could talk. Like I said, wrote my thesis about. I could talk about Black Boy for days. Like, in my research, I know that man and his relationship with James Baldwin. They were like cool, and they had a beef. Yeah.
So, you know how well you both of you know this, that I'm a stickler for words, and I'm gonna have to put this on the podcast so it's finally down here. Is that I think that us as Black people need to stop using certain words, because so you said the word mentor. That comes from the Greco-Roman culture, and with a mentor, it was someone who would take on a kid like maybe 10 years old or something like that, and then by the age of 13 they would be like, to get into apprenticeship because of the Greeks and Romans, their type of culture, they would be sodomized as an introduction into the. There's a other word that I use a lot. It's called Jegna, which is Jegna. And I'll read the definition. Jegna are those special people who have been tested in struggle or battle, demonstrated extraordinary and unusual fear, show determination and courage in protecting his or her people, land, and culture, show diligence and dedication to our people, produce exceptionally high quality of work, dedicated themselves to protection, defense, nurturance, and development of our young by advancing our people, place, and culture. So I just wanted to add.
I like that more. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that.
Because sometimes when I space out and it's like, oh, like I'll just say my professor or my advisor, but then when the word finally comes back to me, it's like, my Jegna is so and so, because I have a lot of Jegnas in my life where, like, these motherfuckers are bad. You don't touch them. You try to, it's like they're gonna whoop you real quick, not physically but intellectually. So,
Jegna, that's how you pronounce it.
Jegna.
Jegna. Because I'm not gonna be a mentor any longer.
But so I wanted to kind of wrap up this. I know that we've kind of tried to separate from just defining masculinity and manhood in the terms of its relation to women. But based off of Baudelaire, you said that you're in a relationship. Shawn has experience. But
listen, I will say this before I interrupt. I don't need to interrupt the host, but listen, a relationship, love between love, especially Black love. I love the idea of love. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think if you're able to commit to somebody and it doesn't work out, it's okay. It happens. Life moves on. But you'll be better suited for somebody else and somebody who's actually equipped for you. And you'll be equipped for that person. So I'll say that. I say that because it is important to say, especially within our community. Single life is cool. But as a man at this point in my life, I'm 29 years old, being single, it's more about focus on self and developing myself properly for the right partner. And I think, I can look at it from I hate women perspective or I hate relationships. No, I don't. I love my female counterparts. I love my woman. I love my people. But at the same time, when you're in a position where you can actually develop yourself, take the opportunity and run with it, because you might not ever get it again. So I will say that there.
And in conjunction to that is people also need to understand that there's a difference between being alone and being lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Because
especially as a man,
because the thing is that if you have done all of the things that we've talked about within this podcast, like working on yourself, understanding the feminine energy within you, and just like cultivating yourself, you won't be lonely. You might be alone, but you won't be lonely. And I think that loneliness is that you're looking for someone else to fulfill your needs. And as soon as you need someone, you give someone dominion over you. If I'm thirsty and someone has water, I will do whatever they say for water. They have complete control over me. So it's about addressing your own needs and looking for your wants in someone else, not your needs.
Yeah, I think to speak for my brothers in relationships, I think that I had reached I think I had reached a point where I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. I reached a point where my growth, I wanted the challenge of it. Like when I met my girl, like I said, we've been together 4 years, right? Like 6 months into our relationship, I was like, okay, so yeah, we got to live together. Like because it was just immediate. It was like, oh, this works perfectly. Like there's just the, you know what I mean? The masculine, feminine balance between the two of us, as well as like the accountability factor. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, if I'm really this guy, right? Like I remember just a really quick story. Like I thought to myself, like I really want to do something to help Haiti, right? I'm Haitian, and a Haitian that understands my Africanness also. That's a key thing, a Pan-African Haitian. But I knew like I want to do something to help Haiti. And I would talk about it with my girl. Like from day one, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do something to help Haiti. I'm going to do something to help Haiti. Something to help Haiti. To be clear, that means nothing, right? So I'm like, something to help Haiti, something to help Haiti. And one day, like, I kind of just felt like, yo, I really like this girl a lot. I love this girl. And I need to like prove it, what I'm saying. So I developed a nonprofit to help Haiti. You know what I mean? Haitians for Haiti. You know what I mean? We were actually supposed to go on a trip 2 years ago. I was going to send 5 nurses to Haiti to help completely free. But
what's the name of it one more time so that people can get it?
Oh, Haitians for Haiti. I think I have it in my bio on Twitter. My Twitter is at Baudelaire, Baudelaire. I'll pin it to my top tweet after this, just so it's really easy to find. But yeah, so my goal is to every year send a team of nurses to Haiti to help. And would I have done that eventually without, being with my girlfriend? Maybe. But her kind of holding me to the fire without really even knowing it, just her existence of like, I need to prove I'm this guy that I say I am, made me kind of, it like honed my discipline. It's like, okay, no, I don't really say, just the kind of guy I am. I don't really say things I'm not going to do. right? But it took that to the 10th level. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm not gonna say it if I'm not gonna do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So not to say that you can't. Some brothers could do that, but like single. I'm not saying that there's impossible single. I just found that for myself. I started falling into oh, ain't nobody watching me. I mean, shit. I'm one day I'm gonna help Haiti. Who's gonna tell me I got to do it tomorrow? You know what I mean? But it was like it was like an iron sharpens iron situation. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, okay, I got to walk it like I talk it because this person is watching me every day.
Yeah, and by no means am I saying it's like you don't need anyone. But the thing is that I've learned from my own self-experience is that as soon as I got comfortable with being alone, it's like my mental health was a lot better. It's like when you're lonely, it's like you're constantly thinking about the things that you do not have. Mm-hmm. And it's corrosive. Loneliness is something that's very corrosive. Like it can really fuck you up. It's like, and that's what I was kind of saying with it. It's just like, if you don't have someone in your life right now and you feel lonely, find a way to get yourself out of loneliness and being content with being alone, but not complacent with being alone. But what I was gonna try to get into, and this is gonna be the last question, is how does masculinity and manhood play into a relationship?
I put the first one first, so Shawn, you take this one.
Play into a relationship. Yes, there's balance in feminine and masculine energy. You need to be able to recognize that. And as a man, you have to find that balance and understand that balance. And so Baudelaire's point of him starting a nonprofit of Haitians for Haiti, right? It comes down to being a man of your word, right? And men, you're held to a certain standard. And so because you're held to this standard, you need to play that role. You need to be that role and embody that role. So it is really important when it comes to a relationship because, you know, your lady, your woman, your queen is going to look up to you in that light, in that regard, right? That's the expectations that ultimately she's going to have for you. And so when it comes into manhood, man, you got to step up to the plate. And I think that ties into, you know, masculinity and having the traits, right? Having the proper traits of a man to be able to take that responsibility on, own it, and run with it. And it's really important. So, you know, you got to recognize who you are in a relationship, what role you play. And at the end of the day, I don't care what anybody says, you know, a man's the head of the household, right? They lead. Women are looking to submit to a man that has a purpose, a man that follows his purpose and sticks to what he says, because that's a man that can be trusted ultimately, right? Because he's going to repeat the same actions that showcase who he is, his characteristics, his core values. And that it plays a big role into relationships. They look up to you in that regard, and you have to always be on point. That doesn't mean you're never going to fall down. But when you do, you'll be with somebody who is equipped for you and knows that, listen, this man is only going through a little phase only because of X, Y, and Z. For that, like I said earlier, I'm going to give this man his space. He will figure it out because he has proven to me that he will figure it out.
It's like when you fall, she doesn't start stomping.
She's not going to start stomping on you. No. She's going to give you the time to figure it out. But as men, you have to step up to the plate. You have to really take it on and embody it. And sometimes you might not be ready for that. And be conscious of that. You know what I mean? There's certain things like I just got out of a 6-year relationship. So I get what it takes to be in a long-term committed relationship, right? It takes a lot more work than saying I love you. Right? There's a lot of consistency that you need to come to the table with. It's like you come to the table hard with the first date. Listen, my brother, you better go hard the entire time. You come hard the first date. Roof Chris is the expectation for the rest of the experience, right? And you have to hone up to that because those are the expectations that you brought to the table. And that's why it's important to embody who you are as a man and know that you're ready for this role. Especially when it comes to a relationship. If you're not, do not get into relationships. Figure it out. Take the time for you because you start to see a lot of women do that actually. They take the time for them to figure it out and all of a sudden they're doing great things, marvelous things. And men are meant to do great and marvelous things. But you have to take the time to know who you are as a man, and your masculinity is going to play a big role into the traits that you carry as a man, right? And knowing what you are, and not just tying your age to being a man, because there's a lot of grown boys out here, right? We're gonna keep it real. There's a lot of grown boys out here.
There's a lot of arrested adolescents out here.
Arrested adolescents, yes. You put it to me. You put it a lot better than I did, and then that's the unfortunate reality that we're living in, right? But at the same time, we need to sharpen each other and hold each other accountable. And it's gonna those things, like for instance, when I was in a relationship, I knew I was going to the wrong people for advice, right? Single people that just don't have it, they're ill-equipped to be able to tell you and give you sound advice. Now you're putting your business out there too, right? So now you're just creating a whole lot of energy that's not going to help you. And as a man, you need to be able to control that all the way through. It's extremely important. And that's finding that balance in feminine and masculine energy. You're already going to come to the table with that masculine energy. But when you understand the feminine energy within you, and you understand, all right, this is how my lady is, period, right? I might not understand it, but logically, I know this is how she is. You need to be able to stay consistent and understand that she's going to be ever changing. But as me being the pillar, me being the head, I need to hold myself accountable at all costs. And your manhood is going to play into that. You know what I mean? Who you are as a man, what do you actually stand for? And women hold you accountable. So I say this to all brothers that are either in relationships, thinking about relationships, be consistent. Consistency is very important. You get the flowers the first day, you get the flowers year 3, you get the flowers year 4, you get the flowers year 5. You get gifts the first day, you get gifts year 2, year 3, year 4, and so on and so forth, because you're the one who's setting the expectation. And understand that you have a lot of power in your relationships. You can make your relationship extremely great, and you're having the best time of your life with your lady, or you have the power to destroy that relationship, and yet she's seeking other options because you're allowing that. You're not playing your role and your part. So I say that with respect to, it's not always them. Sometimes it's you. So yes. When you get into situations like that, check yourself.
As a very
Baudelaire, can I say something right before you go? I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
And so something that you said is like that I kind of just wanted to just give my perspective on is that if you're the type of guy that can only take a woman out to TGI Fridays, and there's nothing wrong with that. That might be how your bank account's set up right now. Take her out to TGI Fridays, because I see a lot of men that are like, I'm gonna save up so I can give her this very immaculate date. Like, oh, we're gonna just like, you have set the bar. You have shown her as like, okay, this is what I should be accustomed to. And then the next date, because you spent all your money on the first one, you eating at a Waffle House. Then she's like, okay, I don't understand what's going on here. It's like, so it's like, it's about coming righteous to a woman. And by righteous, I don't mean like being like godly or something like that. I mean, righteous is like being honest with yourself and with her. And it's like, this is what I can afford right now. It's like, if you want it, you can have it. If you don't, then we had a great date and move along. But a lot of men, like we talked about before, cannot drop their ego. And the other thing that I just want to say is that, like you said, coming to a woman as a whole man, understanding these things. And the analogy I'll give is that when it, like, let's say women are shopping for a car, men are the cars. You want a car, if you're gonna buy a car, you want a car where everything works. You don't want to buy a car where like you buy it and then you find out that the transmission is shot, the suspension is going, and one of the wheels are loose. It's like, now I have to put work into this. It's like, there's nothing wrong with buying a car that's whole, and then you decide like, you know what? I'm gonna put some rims on this shit. They spinning, nigga. They spinning. Like, like there's nothing wrong with improving upon it. But when you buy a car and you're just like, there's initial repairs that need to be done, I'm gonna be pissed off too. Like, so it's about fixing your own car before you ask someone to buy it.
We'll hop in it.
Man, I don't know if I have much to add to that. That was amazing. Yes, it's funny because before you say anything, I was about to say, like, I completely agree with Shawn. He hit the nail on the head, but you came and it was the alley to you. All right, yeah. I mean, I think, you get into a relationship and, you do your job, whatever that means. You know what I mean? Yeah, if you don't have TGI Fridays money, learn how to cook. What the hell? Like, it's everyone can learn how to cook. There's always a level, and and then to what Shawn said is, stay consistent with the level that you're at until you can offer more, and then the rising tide lifts both boats. But
the problem with setting the bar too high, right, is when you set the bar too high, you ultimately can't live up to the experience long enough to be able to enhance that experience. Unless
you, and I completely agree with that. Unless you're that rare brother that has a plan to keep it going, which is 1 in a million, you might die. You might die trying to do it. But hey, shoot for the stars. I'm not gonna tell you not to do it. Do your thing. But if it goes wrong, you know why. It's also so. Yeah, man. You brothers killed it, man.
We all did.
It plays an important role. You gotta know what you bring to the table and respect that, own that, and know your level. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of women. Don't waste women's time, man. Know your level. Know where you're at in life.
Do not waste it. Women say this a lot, and men take this as an offense. Do not waste a woman's time. That is.
And the thing about it too is, like, they understand the value of that time, and men have to understand the value of their time, right? Because a woman that knows a man that understands and owns his value in terms of time, they're gonna be like, I need to be able to do whatever I can to keep this man's eye on me, because he's more focused on his purpose, which you should always be focused on your purpose. Doesn't mean that you don't love her. Doesn't mean that you're not gonna be responsible for her. But at the same time, you're gonna keep yourself to a higher standard and higher regard, and she knows that you find that important. So therefore, she's gonna play that role to be able to stay into your life and be able to enhance and help you multiply. And that's what a great woman is all about. Great woman can lead, yes, so to speak. Again, the roles are interchangeable in all relationships. There's gonna be times where mom's gonna lead. You know what I mean? The wife's gonna lead. She's gonna lead that. She has that. She owns that. But men, we're able to understand it and respect it, right? And that comes with a lot of confidence, and that comes with being aware of your masculine energy, her feminine energy, and finding that balance and controlling the balance. Because at the end of the day, you as the man have the control. There's nothing worse than an emotional man. I always tell people this: like, an emotional man either ends up dead early, in jail, or commits mass murders, or does some wild shit. It's
mass murders for white people.
Yes. Specific. Yes, yeah, brothers don't do that. But when it comes to us, we unfortunately harm each other on alarming rates, and we gotta cut that out and not condone it. And so that's the reason why I have a very big principle myself, that I don't believe in finding our own. I'll do everything I can, everything in my power, not to fight another brother. Everything in my power. Now, for all the races, I'm sorry, you don't have the same luxury, but I have that very strict for my own, and that just comes from a place of love, and it comes from a place of reverence, and it's a deeper understanding, and you understand that love is a very godly emotion. It's a very powerful emotion. And when you give that love to another brother, he understands that he's loved amongst his peers. He'll feel just as strong as you, and he'll get that confidence that you're giving off. So it's really important. And I know that kind of shied away from the topic of masculinity in relationships, but brothers that hold each other to the same standard are able to help other brothers perform better in their relationships, right? Me getting out of this one, I had a brother that understood my entire situation. I now know going into my next relationship, it is going to be the best experience of my entire life, because I am more equipped with the knowledge that I just didn't have before. And, again, to my earlier point, be consistent. Men, you really hold a lot of the power, the majority of the power, because you hold the access to relationships in marriage. You're asking her to be your girlfriend. You're asking her to be your wife. So again, hone your role and know exactly what step you're at personally. As a man, that's not just financially, that's emotionally, especially emotionally, so that you are equipped to be able to handle the situations, to be able to persevere, and to be able to know that you actually have a woman of quality that's with you. Because a man that's not all there is going to get with anything. a man that is there and knows his value will not just subject himself and waste his time for any woman. So bam.
I have a job to do in my relationship. My wife just finished dinner, so I got to do my job.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Let me just wrap it up then. Well, I'm just gonna say thank you to you. Thank you to both of you brothers.
Thank you.
For people that know, well, for the people that don't know, if they're like, oh, well, this is just like, yes, it is Black men speaking. However, it is coming from different parts of the diaspora. I'm just regular Black. My cousin Shawn, he's Jamaican, and as Baudelaire said, he's Haitian. So it's like it is very
Jamaican
different.
Actually, real quick fact of early Caribbean history is slaves were sold between the two islands so often that one of Shawn's ancestors could have fought in the Haitian Revolution. You know what I mean? Bookman, the dude that started the first battle, was actually Jamaican at the Haitian Revolution. You know what I mean? So we really
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we're all family.
It's all family.
For the Africans at home and abroad. And African Americans also played such a monumental role in all this that like regular Black, I feel like, undermines y'all importance in this. Like y'all African Americans, it'd be my last thing. African Americans created the tart that my plane as Haitians that are here in America, all Black people from all across the diaspora, we got to land on it. You know what I mean? I was able to come here and immediately fall in love with hip hop culture because hip hop culture was for me. You know what I mean? In school, Ashanti wasn't like, hey, you're not African American. This is for African American. No, hip hop culture is an African culture. You know what I'm saying? So African Americans laid the bedrock for us to be able to do what we do here. So I love my African Americans.
I'm also going to give praise to my Haitian brothers and sisters, because with the Haitian Revolution, that catapulted a lot of things.
It did.
And we don't have time to go into it, but it's like, as my dad would say, read a book. Read a book. But thank you, both of you brothers, for coming. And I just want to give you both just 30 seconds to promote anything that's coming up for you guys.
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned Haitians for Haiti. I actually remember the link. The link actually to the Haitians for Haiti is gofundme.com /Haitians-for-Haiti. So it's easier than going to my Twitter or whatever. But my Twitter also is @Baudelaire, BAUDELAIRE. My book, my first book, My Journey Home, available on everywhere you get books. Amazon, the place that most people go. And my podcast, La Soapbox, is available everywhere you get podcasts.
There we go. The thing that I got coming up is my 2 cents podcast. Be on the lookout for that. It's going to be me and 2 other people running it with my other business partner. So I'm very excited for that. We're actually just prepping that. So be on the lookout for that. My 2 cents is actually on all platforms, whether it's Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. My personal Instagram is the Shawn Lawson, THESHAWNLAWSON. You can find me on Twitter as well at Black Mogul, very easy, BLACKMOGUL. And you can also find my 2 cents podcast on Twitter, all platforms. Be on the lookout for that. And I'm excited to continue that. And it was a pleasure having this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Ashanti.
Of course. And thank you again, brothers. That has been another episode of Tune Talks with the Pharaoh. I'll see you guys next week.